Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Leela and this is my beautiful cat Zeleny, and I love to read queer, trans, and feminist literature. And today I have a very exciting TBR because I have been blessed by the goddess, aka my friend Ariel, with an early copy of We Love You Bunny by Mona Awad. Look at her, she is so gorgeous. The launch for this is actually next week, and I do have a ticket for the New York City event. I am determined to also reread Bunny before diving into this one. As I mentioned in my recent book haul video where I picked this one up, I've read Bunny before, and it was actually reading this book that made me feel absolutely certain that I wanted and needed to pursue my MFA in creative writing, LOL. And I have since completed my MFA in creative writing from the new school, and I feel like it was pretty much exactly like this. So I'm looking forward to rereading and reflecting, and then also gaining all of the further context in the prequel sequel stories within We Love You Bunny. So I am just so excited. Gonna pick out some tabs and let's get into it. I will get back to you with my first Bunny update. I am in the gender-neutral bathroom outside the List Library at the new school, which was my sacred, safe place throughout my MFA. And I wanted to update you that I have finished rereading Bunny. There are my pink tabs. Don't they look like a delicious cupcake? And isn't that perfect for this book? This is the little bunny that I was using as a bookmark. My girlfriend Alessandra actually made this at the Barnard Zine Library, which feels really perfect. Obviously, this book is just so masterful and I love it so much. I love everything about it. I love the thesis, my sad girl novel. I've forgotten that detail and I'm obsessed. I love the literary references, particularly Alice in Wonderland, The Bell Jar, Wuthering Heights, Daughters of Wolf, obsessed. All the fairy tale references, the myths of Avalon, are you kidding? And of course, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, obsessed. I love all the bunnies, obviously, in particular, Creepy Doll and Vignette. And I had actually forgotten that Vignette is the name of one of the characters, or like the nickname of one of the characters in this book. And when I did Jenny Fran Davis's literary salon last fall, I wrote a short story called Novelette and Villanelle, which is actually the first video on my YouTube channel if you want to watch me read that story. But in that workshop, we had kind of joked, or like I had thought of, and then we had laughed about, what if the mother in that story had aborted a fetus that she would have named Vignette had she carried that pregnancy to term and had another baby girl. So I was like, LOL. I loved also the detail that the Duchess character wears the diamond that she uses to carve her poems around her neck, because when I was drafting my novella, I would save each draft on a USB key and I would wear that USB key on a ribbon around my neck. So I loved that. I felt close to the Duchess in that way. This book was just like so perfect to read at this time of year. Like back to school, early autumn. I just love it so much. Plus this like dark academia vibes, but it also has Yule and springtime, which I love. Oh, I love like the witchy elements, like the tarot cards and the writing class, and oh my god, like the writing professor's goth daughter, Persephone, obsessed. Something that stopped me a lot more on this reread at this point in my life was this book's profound exploration of class as it relates to creative writing MFA programs. And I feel like a big part of the protagonist's like inner conflict is her conflicting desires to fit in with the bunnies and the culture of wealth at her school and to reject that. And I feel like in the end, I got a sense of like dissolution of a black and white difference between the bunnies and Samantha's best friend, Ava, the punk swan. I felt throughout the book that like both were kind of bullying her and neither was like her integrated, true, authentic, high self. But I was really interested in that because I personally went through something really similar throughout my experience of my MFA, where I was like, should I even go? And then I was kind of constantly in crisis of like, should I drop out and move home or should I finish this? And I think I had this like very cynical idea about the MFA program as a capitalistic scam, preying on the vulnerability of artists enamored by the American dream or the idea of making it, and kind of oscillating between my inner girl boss and my inner witch in terms of which archetype I wanted to embody ultimately. And ultimately I did finish my program and I am glad that I did. And I feel like one of my takeaways was that I did not need to, but I had to know for sure that I did not need to. And also I'm really glad that I did. I don't know if that makes sense. I read a lot of books like before coming and while I was here about MFA programs. Two that I would mention are MFA versus NYC, which is a bunch of different authors' perspectives on MFA programs and writing careers in general. And I remember one of those talks about like how like a rape story was like workshopped to perfection to the point that all of the like raw emotion was gone. It was like a perfectly polished, lovely rainbow or something. And I feel like there is truth to that I did kind of experience myself in the MFA process, where I did come in with a bit of a more raw project and did leave feeling like I had sort of polished it to this like pearlescent place of invulnerability almost, and kind of lamented and longed to get back to that more like adolescent immediacy that I'd had before. And that was like even with me being on guard against that, but maybe that just goes to show that I was too on guard in general, like I don't know, but I think there is some truth to that. I also do think that I gained a lot of perspective, and I don't know if I gained skill, but I gained sensibility. And I feel like that is why like Bunny made me want to get my MFAs, because this text, this language is so masterful. I was like, I need to know how to do this. And also like the everything about it is like 100% accurate to my MFA experience. Another book that I had read that kind of explores that same type of theme as well, about like how do writing programs affect writing itself, was The Program Era. I feel like that author like has an issue with Joyce Carol Oates for no reason, like maybe just sexism, but also he talks about Patchwork Girl by Shelley Jackson, who is my professor here at the new school, and whose project Patchwork Girl I feel like is totally bunny coded. It is like a hypertext Frankensteinian post-Frankenstein novel that's really cool. There are videos on YouTube of her explaining it, which I will link in the description because it is so awesome. I'm so proud of her, and I'm so proud that I studied with her. And I do also feel like there is some truth to what Ava said about the bunnies. When Sam says they're graduate students, Ava says exactly, hiding from life in the most coddling, insular, and self-aggrandizing way. I feel like there is truth to that. Like while I was here, I did sometimes feel like I was at an expensive preschool. That was very nice. And I do feel like going straight through from undergrad, I was kind of underprepared for entering the real world, just because I've been in academia for my whole life. I did feel a little sad that ultimately like all of the female friendship falls apart. Like the bunnies are literally fighting each other over a man. So are Ava and Sam kind of. Sam and the bunnies don't seem to be friends at the end. Sam has lost Ava by the end. And like, I feel like there was sort of this like feeling towards the end of like the bunnies are cunts. And I'm like, and it even like gestures towards a sort of like homoeroticism between, oh my god, gestures, Sam and Ava, sort of like more than friends vibe. Like that's even sort of in the text, like maybe they were more than friends. And I loved their deep friendship. It was a very romantic friendship regardless of whether or not there were like lesbian feelings. But regardless, like I do hope that we will see more like strong female friendship in We Love You Bunny, because I really like Jonah, the sweet and kind poet boyfriend, but like I feel like a really sweet and kind boyfriend doesn't replace like true friends. So I'm hoping for that in We Love You Bunny. Anyway, speaking of We Love You Bunny, I'm actually currently on my way right now to Barnes & Noble Union Square, where the launch event is being held. I did not get to read it pre-launch, and that's okay. I know I'm getting like a Barnes & Noble exclusive edition anyway. I finished this today and the event is tonight, so that's perfect. And I'm looking forward to hearing the conversation and then reading the new book with that context. So let's go to the event.
me or us or even like reality, really. I'll just hang on to the axe while we talk. Is that okay with you?
Hi, Bunny. So I went to the We Love You Bunny event and I got the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition signed, and Awad also signed my copy of Bunny. So I now have these 2 editions of the hardcover. This special edition has this foiling on the cover and on the spine. I've learned from experience that this can rub off, so I'm definitely gonna read the physical book with the dust jacket off. So it also has an extra chapter called Swan's Way, which is of course a Proust reference. There's also a QR code to scan for bonus content and this fun print. And then funnily enough, I actually also found an arc of We Love You Bunny, literally in a box on the sidewalk full of a bunch of seemingly unread arcs. So I guess someone like works in publishing or is an author and got sent those and didn't read them and put them out for me to find. So that was really exciting. And so I now actually have these 3 editions of We Love You Bunny. Also, pardon if you can hear Kitty's snores. He is sleeping next to me. I do have selenite also here on my right. So the event was really fun. It felt a lot like being at a concert, and there were a lot of like cute dresses and bows and bunny themed accessories. So that was just so fun. And the conversation was very interesting. It was actually recorded for the Poured Over podcast. So I feel like I might re-listen to that after I finish the book. I did start it. It was cool to have been introduced to it at the book tour event because the story takes place on Sam, the protagonist's book tour for her book, Bunny. And she's like talking at a podium and the bunnies are there sitting in the back row. Meanwhile, Mona Awad is like reading the beginning at this book tour event. I'm there sitting in the back row. I'm like, oh my God. And it does start on Halloween under the full moon. So it's perfect for the season and I'm so excited. Mona Awad said that she is very interested in the monstrous and powerful feminine, like the idea that you can be very powerful and wear pastel. Obviously, I love that. Like she said that just because the bunnies wear pastel does not mean that they're not powerful. And this is sort of in contrast to women in gothic novels historically. Love that. She talked about a lot of her influences, including Frankenstein and Jane Eyre, Love and the Waves by Virginia Woolf. She said that she loves playing in the darkness, and I think that's really felt in these stories, and I love that. She also shared a bit about her writing process, which I thought was interesting. She said that she's a very linear writer and that for her, the first draft is just about catching the spark of life and following it, getting it down. My notes are just like energy, fast. So like, I guess exactly that. And then in the revision is when she layers and goes deeper. So I love that. She also talked about how Bunny is informed by her experience as a Canadian at a US college MFA program and feeling like an outsider and like there's this whole world that she didn't understand. I found that very interesting because as I actually told her when she was signing my books, I'm from Montreal and I got my MFA from the New School in New York, so I really relate. And I also told her that reading Bunny was what made me certain I wanted to get my MFA because I aspired to that level of mastery. So that was cool to be able to tell her that. She also said that her next book is going to be a dark romantic bookstore comedy inspired by Twelfth Night. So I'm very excited for that. But now I'm going to go read We Love You Bunny and I'll update you when I'm about halfway. Cat check.
you vlogging?
Of course.
How's your YouTuber life?
Thriving. I have almost 80 subscribers. Hi Bunny, I am here with an update on We Love You Bunny. I have read up to part 3. I have been reading in this regular edition. I think I'm having a bit of like never sticking my special stickers syndrome with this science special edition, but also honestly, I found this pattern like actually very visually distracting. Like I took off the dust jacket because this foiling can fade. And then when I would then open the book like this, like I would find it like untuneoutable, this like hot pink pattern. Like I would find it then like hard to focus on the words because this like hot pink pattern was like so distracting to me. Whereas this one, that's like a little easier, but then also especially without the jacket, that blue is like totally soothing and calm. I am also a bit sick, which actually feels fitting though, because Mona Awad had COVID during the time that she was writing some key parts of this book. And I feel like there are little nods to that. Like there's like this background character of like a sick woman blowing her nose, which I was just like, I feel that. But anyway, I thought that I would share with you some of my thoughts based on just like what I tabbed in these first 2 sections. Overall, I am really enjoying this book. I did also remember Mona Awad saying that she got stuck in her writing process around halfway through the book. And that was interesting to note. Like as I was like with Arius and he was like wandering, I was remembering that. I love that like pink pony, that this like Pinkie Pie My Little Pony figurine has become like an important character in the story called Pink Pony, and that also the word bronies is used. I'm obsessed with all of that. I myself am a bit of a brony, and I have been rewatching My Little Pony Friendship is Magic alongside my reading of We Love You Bunny, and that has been perfect. I obviously completely identify with Twilight Sparkle. I love her. Friendship is Magic. I love My Little Pony. I found the representations of queerness in this book interesting. Like I noted that the bunnies like all refer to themselves as like gender fluid and gender non-conforming. And it feels like the text does not really take that seriously, but I just thought that was really interesting. So the bunnies identify as gender fluid and gender non-conforming, and then their creation, Arius, is explicitly queer. I find that like interesting, especially because I did feel like in Bunny, the intense friendship between Sam and Ava has like a sort of almost lesbian feeling, but it's like not actualized. They are like straight best friends. There's sort of like a gesturing towards queerness, but not like an actual lesbian relationship. I just love Awad's imagery. Lavender ink onto sheets, like so much fairy blood, pink sparkles, unicorn, sliver of slanting moonlight, like a cat. I feel like this page is just like such an example of so many images that I just adore. Also interesting that Topplestone is explicitly referenced. Speaking of Pink Pony, I also found it very interesting that in We Love You Bunny, one of the poets is specified to be Black, because something that I've been noticing throughout my reading of Bunny and We Love You Bunny is that the canon of literary references made is vast and impressive and very white. So I thought that was interesting that a minor character is named as Black, but is the like fabric of the text diverse? I don't really see that. So that's interesting. I'm also like personally interested in that because Mona Awad
is like me from Montreal and half white Canadian and half Arabic. So I feel like she and I are coming from like a very similar positionality, and I'm interested in how this book then seems to like situate itself in a very white context. Speaking of whiteness, the bunnies do a spell, and I love the vibe of them doing a spell. But then they burn sage, and like the bunnies are obviously white. I think that their whiteness is like a relevant part of their characterization as these like wealthy young women with certain issues. Do I think that they needed to all be white? No, I really don't. But like, does it make sense in the context of the story that is being told that they are? Like, yes. But then I'm just like, really? Like, they're burning white sage. And it just like, I hated that their witchcraft had to then be like culturally appropriative. And also, it doesn't feel like the text is critical of that. It feels like that's just like part of the texture of the scene. And that felt disappointing to me. I'm like, where is the anti-colonial critique in the like bunnies narratives? I found myself really enjoying the Duchesses. I was interested in her like sad girl melancholia, like I abstained from eating, weeping quietly, and I just loved her god complex, honestly. Like this is just such a vibe. I truly began to believe myself a failure, which is so fucking funny when you think about it now. Like I enjoy that. Again, the vocab, witchy, darkening pink cloud, rose petals, teacup, fairy tea, fairy tales. I just love that. But then like speaking of the bunny's whiteness and like sort of colonial situation, I found it like meaningful that then they desire to civilize areas whom they view as wild. Like that exact vocabulary feels quite loaded, actually. Again, the waves, the bell jar, Jane Eyre. This graphic element is so fun and such a mood and so valid. Kill Allen. I agree. I thought this line was kind of like self-aware of the text. It said, I don't know that he understands the difference between figurative and literal language though. I mean, did we ever delineate that? Kira says that. And I guess like that is sort of a thing in Bunny, is that like what is real, what is metaphor is like not clear. And that's part of the story ultimately. And then the references to Frankenstein and Paradise Lost are like very strong, which has me like really tempted to reread Frankenstein. I like face this temptation every single November because I find the line a dreary night in November so just mood. I'm really enjoying like the changing of the seasons too. I appreciated the poet saying that they protest Thanksgiving. There we go. But like, yeah, I loved reading this book and like back to school, autumn, like dark academia times. I loved reading it leading up to and on Halloween. And I'm now like really enjoying the like November into winter setting, though their reason for protesting Thanksgiving doesn't necessarily seem to be like so developed. They just say it's a stupid holiday and a thanks for what exactly, whereas the reason is land back. More on that. There is this like young performance artist who like shows up protesting like the police's lack of action regarding these like mysterious murders that seem to have been happening around campus. And the language, like the literal language used, really evokes like Black Lives Matter activism and the movement for justice for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Like the term missing and murdered is literally used, but we're talking about like a white man killing other white men. So that to me feels like staying on the surface and kind of not plunging a little deeper. I do love the fairy tales because they are about witches and fairies, just like her and just like me. So yeah, I am excited to finish this. Hi, Bunny. I finished We Love You, Bunny, and I loved it. Overall, I just find these books so fun and so deeply inspiring. I thought it was really interesting that we don't hear from Sam's perspective in We Love You, Bunny, because that's kind of like a classic creative writing workshop format, is that the person who's being workshopped is silent and just like receives feedback. And it's kind of fun because then it's like We Love You, Bunny is like the workshop of Bunny. So I thought that was really cute. There are my tabs. I love that we got to the Yule Moon. I was very interested in the phrase Mother's Great Vindication because for me, the word vindication really strongly evokes a vindication of the rights of women by Mary Wollstonecraft, mother of Mary Shelley, author of Frankenstein. And of course, this book is like deeply engaged in conversation with Frankenstein. So I thought that was interesting. Oh, I love the pink moon too. This is my favorite page in the whole book. I don't know if you can see that, but it just says a bunny. I had a really transformative experience reading this book. I feel like I really got like right book, right time friendship from this story. And I'm really grateful for the way that it transformed my spirit and my experience of life during the time that I was reading it. I'm so grateful for these books. I'm so inspired by them. I just feel that Alan deserved worse because his behavior towards Sam and Bunny was really fucked up. Like, I feel like he really crossed lines with her that he should not have in his position of power. So I think he deserved worse. But I love you, Bunny. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed. And I would really love to know which character in Bunny you most identify with. I definitely identify with Sam. I love Creepy Doll's cat ears. I love Vignette's Victorian vibes. And I really enjoy the Duchess's approach to life. I also relate to Ursula's witchiness. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.